Hello and welcome to the Naturopathic Vlog. My name is Jason Lee. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and I'm asking you to spend a couple minutes with me to talk about some tips on health and wellness. So today is a topic that could be good or bad for some people. It's one of the topics in my clinic that patients either love me for or they can't stand me at all. Unfortunately, my opinion on this one never changes. I've been practicing for about 14 years, and it's always the same thing, and that topic is on coffee. When I talk about health with patients, there's always these steps that I go over, and there's quite a few of them, but to summarize, there's 5 really big ones that I'm really picky about. And I'm picky about them because they're things that you can do on a regular basis that make a huge impact on your health for years to come. Number 1 is obviously drink water. Number 2, reduce sugar. Number 3, reduce processed foods, deep fried foods, and foods with additives and junk in them. Number 4, obviously reduce alcohol. And the big one that I get a lot of flack on is reduce or eliminate coffee. Now I get a lot of issues with this. People are like, you know what, I only have one a day, or I only have this a day, or I only have that a day. I heard it's healthy. We'll go over a bunch of these things, but I'm not a huge fan of coffee, and there are many reasons why. There's a book I read a long time ago when I was going through my own health journey, and it was actually written in 1952 or 1953 or so, and it was called You Can Master Disease by Dr. Jason. And in that book he talks about quite a few things. It was quite revolutionary at the time. He talked about why certain pharmaceuticals are not good for the body because they cover symptoms, and why it's important to eat healthy and have proper nutrition, and these were kind of like landmark things back in the 1950s. But he had a huge chapter, I remember, on why smoking is bad. And I know you're probably thinking, well, that's kind of known, but I mean, back in the day they were touting smoking as being quite healthy. Even doctors were posing an ad saying smoking is great, and he was like, no, it's not good because of these reasons. But he also had a chapter on coffee, and he said that coffee is one of the worst things you can do for the body. He equated it basically to, you know, if you smoke a cigarette, you're messing up your lungs, you mess up your heart, you mess up a bunch of different things with the body. But he called coffee smoking for the digestive system. So it messes up your stomach, your intestine, your pancreas, your kidneys, your bladder, gallbladder, all these organs. And it really is one of those things that affects the body on such a major level, and that's why I'm so picky about trying to get patients off of coffee. Now, a lot of people, when they go off coffee, they're like, well, I'm going to have problems because I need coffee for things. I need it for energy. If I go off coffee, I'm going to have low energy. I'm going to feel crummy. I'm going to get headaches. I'm going to get constipated. And it's true. Sometimes these things do happen, and it might make people not even want to go off coffee at all because they're like, why would I go off coffee? I'm going to get all these things. But remember, the headaches are there because of caffeine withdrawal. And it's one of those things that is short-lived. It may last a couple of days to a week. But with adequate water and other supplementation, you can usually get around those things. Constipation is an interesting one because when people go off coffee, sometimes they get constipated and they think, well, I need coffee to go. You shouldn't need coffee to go to the bathroom. I mean, if you do need it to go to the bathroom, it's like a stressful evacuation. So even though you go when you're on coffee, it's not necessarily a proper bowel movement. So stuff's coming out of you, yes, but it's not ideal. And the other one is low energy. Now this one's a tough one because people will say, well, if I don't have coffee, I can't function. I'm a horrible person. I can't concentrate. I can't do the things I need to do. And coffee's like this. It's sort of like borrowing money from your friends to pay off something that you can't afford. If you keep borrowing from them, everything's fine. But the moment you stop borrowing from them, everything goes down the tubes. And coffee's like that. It burns your adrenal gland out. So when you have coffee, it stimulates your adrenal, gives you that upper, so it gives you that energy, but it taxes your adrenal gland, causing you to need more stimulation later on. So it's one of those things, because in the clinic we talk a lot about adrenal health, stress in general, and coffee's one of those things that just saps that. So people then go to the other things. They start citing studies. Like I read a study online that said coffee's really good. It's got antioxidants. It's good for energy. It's good for stamina. It's very, very good. And I'm going to go over some of the reasons why that's not particularly true clinically. I mean, in the studies it might show that, but clinically I don't ever see that in practice. I mean, I've been practicing for over 10 years, and I've been trying to get people off coffee for probably 10 years and probably for the rest of my practice career. I mean, some people listen to me, some people don't. But I have had so many patients come back who, you know, initially are like, I can't give that up. Like, I can't give it up. I love it so much. If I give it up, my life is going to be horrible. It's the one thing I look forward to. I really need it. And 2-3 months later, they're like, I can't believe I used to drink that. Like, I don't even need it anymore. I feel so much better. I've never really had anybody come in saying, you know, since I went off coffee, my skin got way worse. Like my acne got worse, my digestion, it got, you know, worse after going off coffee, you know, all these things. My blood sugar, it got worse. Like all these people notice huge benefits from going off coffee. And I see it clinically all the time, to the point where I have other people who are super into coffee trying to tell other people to go off coffee, and then they get the same response that I get. Why? It's so good for you. I've read these studies. they say the key to health is doing the right thing for a long time. And that's why I do get picky about some of these little things, because people that like coffee have it not just once in a while at special occasions, they have it every single day, even one a day. Every day is where the issue comes in. It doesn't mean you can never have coffee ever. I mean, if you want to have it once in a while, special occasion or an event, or you go to a cottage, or you're on vacation for a week in Italy, you want to have a coffee every day, that's totally fine. It's more the everyday in your main life that I'm more concerned about. So let's go into some of the reasons why coffee's not ideal. So there are 7 steps I'm going to go over as to why coffee is not ideal. And the first one is this: coffee is a prooxidant, which is the opposite of an antioxidant. I mean, everybody knows they should be taking their antioxidants. They should be taking in either vitamins or through foods or other kinds of things. And even studies will say coffee's an antioxidant as well. It's fantastic. It's got loaded with antioxidants. And that is true and not true. It's true in that coffee in the green bean form is loaded with tons of antioxidants. Like, coffee's a fruit, right? It comes in a red fruit, and you pop out this bean out of it, and it's green. And it has a lot of antioxidants. It's quite fantastic. It actually is made into certain supplements that help with metabolism. And it is a great product. But the problem is, no one ever drinks coffee like this. We drink it like this. We roast the coffee. Okay? No one drinks green coffee, they drink roasted coffee. And here's where the problem is. All these things that say coffee is an antioxidant, coffee is really healthy, it's got lots of great constituents in them, these are all destroyed when you roast the coffee. I mean, if you want to oxidize something really, really bad, one of the most aggressive ways to oxidize something is to burn it, to light it on fire and to burn it, or to roast it. So if you roast the coffee to the point where it's basically charred, that's what this is compared to this, you're turning that antioxidant into a massive prooxidant. So that's the biggest thing of all. It's like trying to say, I'm eating a salad and it's healthy, but the salad's deep fried. And saying, well, it's still a salad. It should still be good because it's a salad. If it's deep fried, it's not. And coffee's the same thing. Once you roast that bean, you've oxidized that bean, and now that is a prooxidant. There's no way it can be an antioxidant in the body. Number 2, coffee stimulates stomach acid production, which is normally okay, because when you eat food, you want to stimulate stomach acid production to help you break down food. But the problem is, most people drink coffee away from food. They drink it between meals, they drink it on their breaks, they drink it as snacks. And what happens then is you start secreting stomach acids and digestive juices away from eating. We do not have unlimited digestive enzymes that are just there as a reservoir all the time. They need to be repleted over time. So if you deplete the acids over and over from coffee consumption, especially first thing in the morning, what happens is you limit your digestive capacity for the rest of the day. That's why so many patients, when they go off coffee, they notice a big change in their digestion in a positive way. They get less gas and bloating, they feel a lot better, they don't get that gurgling sensation. For a lot of people, and those of you out there that have heartburn, know when you go off coffee, the heartburn goes away. Why does it go away? Because heartburn is often caused by too little acid causing to reflux through an open valve which is not closing, because you have very little stomach acid. And why do you have little stomach acid? Because you've been depleting it with coffee. Gum chewing does the same thing, but we'll talk about that in another vlog. But that's why coffee is linked so heavily to digestive issues. Also, patients with diabetes or sugar imbalances, coffee affects that too, because if you're not breaking down food properly, you're not digesting that food properly, and that throws off your sugar balance at the same time. So coffee does not help with digestion, even though sometimes it causes bowel movement. Remember, that's a stressful evacuation. That's not a proper bowel movement. And in the end, you have to change your diet to change that bowel movement. Okay? Number 3, coffee creates a large amount of acidity in the body. How does this happen? When you're drinking coffee, it depletes stomach acids. And when you deplete stomach acids, you dump bicarbonate from the pancreas, which causes an alkaline tide. You also deplete that from the pancreas as well, which is why the coffee is not ideal for pancreatic health and sugar balance. When you lose that bicarbonate, the body becomes acidic. And what happens is acidification causes inflammation in the body. Inflammation can be in many, many forms. It can be in the stomach in the form of gastritis, or other digestive issues in the bowel, or it can be systemic. And usually this comes out as joint pain, arthritis issues, even gout issues. So there have been studies that have shown that caffeine interferes with ossification of the body, which means you have bone loss. Coffee affects gout issues as well, causing gouty attacks, which is also an inflammatory condition caused by protein digestion issues, causing uric acid crystals to form in the body, in the joints, creating this painful painful joint pain. So we always talk about, preserving our bones, and people are always afraid of osteoporosis or osteopenia or even joint health as we age. And coffee is one of those things that just saps that. It causes such an acidic environment over a long period of time because people drink coffee all the time. They don't drink it once in a blue moon, it's every single day, that they're creating such an acidic environment in their body that causes inflammation to come out. And usually it comes out with either digestive issues or a lot of it's in the joints. The sad thing is with osteoporosis is a lot of people never feel osteoporosis. You don't feel your bones weakening. You'll just have it with bone breaks or other kinds of things later on. But joint pain you will feel. So one way to preserve bone health, preserve joint health, and to reduce overall pain in the body is to cut the coffee out of the body. So number 4, caffeine acts as a stimulant, which burns the body out and increases cortisol levels. Now, I've never really had in my 14 years of practice someone come into this office that I would say is too relaxed, where their chief complaint is they're too chill and they're so relaxed they didn't really quite know what to do with themselves. In fact, they felt so relaxed, everything was so good, they don't even know why they're here. I mean, most people come in because they are stressed, either physically or mentally, but they are stressed. We have work stress, we have busyness of our lives, we work long hours with families and things like that. People are always rushing around doing tons of things. And that's sometimes interesting is people say, well, I need coffee to do that. If I don't have the coffee, I can't do those things. I can't function properly. And this is the problem because we start taking away our adrenal health bit by bit. The adrenals are this wonderful organ in our body that regulates stress. It regulates inflammation because adrenals produce cortisol. Cortisol is a natural anti-inflammatory. And how many conditions out there are people on cortisol medications, cortisone, prednisones, different kinds of things to deal with their inflammation because they're so depleted. They need an external source to bring it in. But our body naturally produces these things. But if you keep burning it out every time by pressuring the body to dump all the time, especially in the morning when our cortisol naturally spikes and you flood it with the caffeine and it pushes it up even more, it burns our adrenal gland out. The key symptoms of adrenal fatigue, of course, are fatigue in general, irritability, mood issues, sometimes heart palpitations, and all these other kinds of things. And of course it transfers into more systemic issues like immune weaknesses and other kinds of inflammatory conditions, even autoimmune conditions. Caffeine's been shown to raise blood pressure. Obviously it's a stimulant. I mean, some people are on blood pressure medication and they'll take their blood pressure meds with a coffee, which is kind of odd. Caffeine can be linked to insomnia. Even having a coffee in the morning can spike your adrenals up so much that you might not be able to sleep at night. So some people say, well, I had coffee, it was in the morning. That can't be related to my sleep issues. I've had patients go off coffee, maybe even 1 or 2 a day in the morning, and their sleep gets better at night. Also can cause headaches from caffeine withdrawal and other kinds of things because it's a stimulant. Although some people do take coffee for headaches, it's only one of those things that covers the symptom. In reality, if you get off coffee most of the time, especially the caffeine in the coffee, you'll notice a big change in the headaches overall. So, I mean, until I find that patient that comes in that's too relaxed, I mean, most people are too stressed. And one thing about preserving adrenal health is doing it for a long time. So yes, we may not be able to change the craziness at work or a crazy boss or life with the kids or just stress in general, but we can change what goes in our mouth. And that's why I'm a big fan of getting people off coffee. So number 5. Coffee interferes with phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification pathways in the liver. Basically, the liver is an organ where stuff comes in and the body makes that slightly more reactive, so combine it to water and then dump it out via the kidney. So it's how our body eliminates waste. Coffee has a huge effect on liver function, big effect. And it actually hampers liver function. We need our liver for a whole bunch of things. We need it for eliminating toxins that come into our body externally through what we breathe. We need our liver to filter out toxins coming into our foods, and also metabolism issues that are created in our own body, other toxins that are biologically created in our cells need to come out of the body as well. So, I mean, it's like if you're cleaning your house, if you clean on a regular basis, the house still stays clean. But if you forget to clean it once in a while and it goes longer periods of time, the house gets really dirty. And that's kind of how coffee is. When you have coffee on a regular basis, it halts that liver function from processing. So the liver can't dump stuff quite as well. And over time, it starts building up stuff in the body. And you can see it in a whole bunch of different things, from digestive issues to skin issues. Like a big one is acne, eczema, other kinds of rashes, because toxins start dumping back into the blood, coming out through the skin. But one of the things that I see a lot, and this is even studied medically, and you'll see even doctors talking about this, is getting women off of coffee that have breast cysts or fibroids and masses and things like that, especially cysts. And they'll notice a massive change in cyst formation just by getting off coffee. And they're like, what is it about the coffee that prevents you from, that gives you these cysts? It's not that the coffee gives you cysts. The coffee affects the liver in its ability to metabolize hormones. So you build hormone toxicity in the body, and of course hormones store in hormone-sensitive tissue for women, which is the breast and the uterus and the ovaries. I mean, even with men, if you can't eliminate testosterone properly, it stores in the prostate, so it can be linked to prostatic enlargement. So these are things. Also, women who have menopausal symptoms, hot flashes, and other kinds of things that come along with menopause get a lot better when they go off coffee as well. Why is that? Because it affects the liver. But also coffee affects the adrenal gland, which we talked about earlier, and the adrenal gland is huge for hormone balance too. So if you want to have healthy hormones, one key thing is to get off coffee, and that's something I see a lot in the practice. Coffee also contains methylxanthines, which affect hormone metabolism in general and add as other toxins to the body. And I'll go in later about some of the additives to coffee that it can also affect your liver, but it's one of those things that the liver is an organ that is greatly misunderstood. People only look at the liver when you have cirrhosis or some kind of liver disease, but ideally you should be cleaning your liver on a daily basis, and that's the reason why I'm not a huge fan of these things, because people take it every day, all the time, for a long time. If you want to do a cleanse, I mean, that's great. You can eat the right things for a week and feel a lot better. But I mean, why not cleanse every day and just do the right thing for a long time and keep your liver clean in general? Number 6, coffee is a diuretic, which basically causes the body to lose water. Now, one thing I'm always on patients' cases about in the practice is water. A lot of people come in, and if they drink water, it's usually not enough. And some people just don't like water at all. They might have juice, they might have milk, they might have coffee or other kinds of things, but they don't take enough water. And coffee is a diuretic. It causes the body to lose water. So it doesn't count as your water intake. It actually causes detriment. So ideal water intake for the average adult is between 1.5 to 2.5 liters, depending on your size. 1 cup or 250 mils of water is lost per cup of coffee. So if you drink a couple of cups of coffee, you're actually losing a lot of water as well. So some people are almost like a negative water load, right? So that's one of those big things. Water has such a huge benefit for cleansing the body, helping with digestive function, important with enzyme secretion, a whole bunch of things. And we always know the body is like a good 80% water. But if you're drinking coffee every day and something's not replenishing with water, you lose a lot of that water, and then the body can't detoxify properly, it can't flush properly, and it basically becomes unclean. They always say that dilution is the solution to pollution. We need to keep the body diluted with water, not coffee and other drinks. So it's one of those things that helps a lot with that. And number 7, ideally, if you look at coffee that's been drank in many indigenous cultures, like in Africa or South America, a lot of people drink their coffee black. Right? That's the way it's supposed to be drank. If you're going to drink coffee at all, it's black. But a lot of people, especially in North America, don't like their coffee black. They put other things in it, such as creams, sweeteners, sugars, artificial agents, creaming agents, and other kinds of things. And this is where it gets even more harmful, because it amplifies coffee's ill effects on the body, because we have these every day. I mean, the world record in this office, and I know it sounds crazy, I still can't believe someone actually did this, was a gentleman that drank 9 pots of coffee a day. And his first 2 pots of coffee, he called them 2x4s. And I'm like, what is a 2x4? He goes, oh, you don't know what a 2x4 is? I'm like, no. Well, I sort of know, but I don't think it's what you're talking about. He goes, no, a 2x4, 4 cream, 4 sugar, right? So, I mean, I know this man didn't start off having 4 cream and 4 sugar in his coffee, but it's one of those things that you start with 1 coffee, you start with the cream, you start with the sugar, and then over time you just start upping it. Very common doses of double-double, right, or single, right? So people add these things, and they don't realize, I think, what it does to the body over a long period of time. I mean, you do it for once in a while, 1 cream, 1 sugar, I mean, no big deal. You do that every single day, maybe sometimes twice or 3 times a day for like many years, it will add up to a lot of problems for people, right? So caffeine definitely, or coffee in general, increases the amount of sugar that people get in. The average North American back in the day consumed 5 pounds of sugar a year in the 1900s, and now it's somewhere between 140 and 160 pounds of sugar a year. And that comes in many kinds of foods, which we'll go into at another vlog. But a lot of it comes in the drinks that we use. Some people, it just comes in their coffee. Some people put in their tea, other kinds of things. So that's not ideal. Even decaf coffee, some people say, was it about the caffeine? I mean, partly yes, but a lot of it no. Coffee has other properties to it that are not ideal, aside from the caffeine in general. They'll say, what about decaf coffee? Decaf, first of all, doesn't mean non-caffeinated. It still has caffeine in it, okay? Just a lot less. But a lot of the coffees use formaldehyde to decaffeinate the coffee, and that stays in the coffee and comes into you. So it's almost like I'd rather you have regular caffeinated coffee as opposed to the formaldehyde decaf coffee. Also, you gotta watch where your coffee is being made. A lot of coffee machines use plastic filters and plastic things inside of it, and when the hot water goes over that, it actually affects the plastic. Plastic contains bisphenol A, which is an endocrine disruptor. And if you're filtering the coffee with the hot water through this plastic all the time, you're drinking that stuff as well. Even the filter paper contains chemical concentrates. There was a study that found that just the coffee filter paper alone is known to increase LDL cholesterol in the body because it oxidizes tissue. LDL, they consider it the bad cholesterol. It's basically cholesterol moving out of the liver because it's trying to deal with inflammation. So, I mean, coffee filter paper, which you dump the coffee through all the time, also does the same thing. And also what's in the coffee itself. Ideally, if you're going to have coffee at all, it's best to have organic coffee. Some people say, well, who cares? What's the difference? Most conventional coffee is riddled with pesticides, tons of pesticides, which come out in the bean and go into your cup, and that goes back into your body. So if you're doing that, like I said, once in a blue moon, no big deal, but that happens all the time, every day, it's going to add up, right? So best to switch to coffee to something else, and we'll talk about some of those alternatives in a little bit. Sometimes people just want that warm morning drink in the morning, and you can do that with so many other options aside from coffee. Also, one thing to do is watch out for amounts. Just like that man that had 9 pots of coffee. I mean, I don't think I'll ever see that in my practice career, hopefully. But you know, the average person will have like 2, 3, sometimes even 4 cups of coffee a day. Some people will even come in, and to them it's like, I don't have that much coffee, Dr. Lee. About 5 or 6 a day, that's about it. You know, I stop it after about 6. And I'm like, well, it's still a lot of coffee. But in their mind, their friend drinks 8 or 10. So they're like, well, he drinks a lot more than I do. But in the end, it's all relative. There was a study by the Mayo Clinic that said more than 4 cups of coffee a day is linked to early death. A 21% increase in all-cause of mortality. So, I mean, it's a big deal. So obviously, if you're going to have hot coffee, have it as least amount as possible, and less is better. So in regards to caffeine content, I mean, with coffee, there's so many things I'm not a huge fan of, but the caffeine is part of that. But let's just go over some caffeine numbers, because there's caffeine in lots of things. There's caffeine in green tea, for example, there's caffeine in black tea, and there's caffeine in coffee. So some people say, well, what about decaf, or if I just get rid of all the caffeinated stuff altogether? Well, let's talk, because I think no one really should be on caffeine. It's a stimulant. And like I said, we're too stimulant enough as a people anyway. We don't need more stimulation. In fact, if you feel that you need caffeine to function properly, it's probably reason to get off coffee even more, or get off caffeine even more because you need it too much. So a coffee brewed about, an 8-ounce cup is between 95 and 200 milligrams of caffeine. Decaf brings it down to about 2 to 12 milligrams, so it does drop it quite a bit, but there's still caffeine in there. Espresso is probably one of the better ones, 47 to 75 milligrams of caffeine. Instant coffee goes 27 to 173 milligrams of caffeine. It all depends on the roasting and how long you let it sit for and things like that. When it comes to coffee, we'll just talk about brands like Starbucks. Wonderful Starbucks over here. So the sizing makes a big difference, right? So a short, small cup is about 130 milligrams of caffeine to a venti, which can be over 340 milligrams of caffeine. So you're getting to high numbers of caffeine here when you start getting to large sizes of coffee. Black tea sits at about 26 to 40 milligrams. Again, depends on how long you let it sit for. Oolong tea, 50 to 75. Green tea is still 15 to 70 milligrams of caffeine. There are a lot of people that drink tea and they'll leave the tea bag in and just keep filling up with water over and over and over again. That's not the way to do it. You put the tea bag in, you wait 2 minutes, you pull it out. You don't leave it in there all day long, because the caffeine gets more and more the longer you leave that tea bag in there, okay? And herbal tea, of course, is one of the best. It's 0, so there's no caffeine in there at all. So people talk about decaffeination techniques. I mean, most decaffeination techniques use formaldehyde, which stays in the coffee, not ideal. There's a Swiss water technique which uses water and osmosis to decaffeinate the beans. I mean, this technique is probably the best if you're going to go for a decaffeinated coffee. I would use the Swiss water technique over anything else. But mainly, what I want to get into is more alternatives to coffee, to try and just get out of that thing. Like, some people just want something warm in the morning, and you'd be surprised. There are patients that come in, they're like, I can't go off coffee, I love it too much. And then later on, they're like, you know what? This tea was fine. I just realized I needed something warm in the morning. So there are a whole bunch of different teas out there that are fantastic. There's so many companies that now promote teas and have all these different kinds of teas, like David's Tea and Tivana, and if you go to Whole Foods, they have a whole line of different things, and they're all quite fantastic. Great alternatives are white tea, green tea. You can even make a green tea, matcha green tea, which is a powdered green tea. This is the highest antioxidant substance for tea right here. It's a powdered green tea. It's picked from young shoots. and it's fantastic. So you kind of whisk it. You don't just pour it in and just kind of stir it. You got to whisk it with a special whisk, but it's fantastic. It has a small amount of caffeine, so it gives you a little kick, but tons and tons of antioxidants. It's just an amazing thing. So I'll include some recipes for how to make that in our vlog as well. One tea I really like, which is a herbal tea, but it's quite dark, is called rooibos tea. Rooibos tea is an African bush tea. I first had it actually when I was traveling through Africa, and this is years ago, and I thought, wow, this is great, they should bring it to North America. And then about 3 years later, I started seeing it pop up everywhere. So it's quite a dark tea, but it is a herbal tea, and it's fantastic. One of my other favorite drinks to have in the morning has nothing to do with any of these things, and it's lemon water, which I know sounds kind of gross, but you put some lemon, some hot water, you can slice up some ginger, a touch of honey if you want, and a bit of cinnamon, and that is a fantastic drink that stimulates your digestion, regulates blood sugar, and I actually get used to it, and I really like it. And there are a lot of people that actually really do like it. They're like, you know what, it's not that bad. It's something I could totally do in the morning. So those are some options you can have, and again, we'll include some of those in the vlog. So to summarize, let's summarize this. Coffee does the following. It's a prooxidant, which is the opposite of an antioxidant. It stimulates stomach acid, but away from food, causing you to lose stomach acid so you can't digest food properly. It creates acidity in the body that causes issues with joints, bones, and hair, skin, and nails. You want to look younger? It's not about the creams you put in your face. Just get off the coffee and other kinds of junk. It is a stimulant, and most people are way too stimulated enough as it is. They don't need more stimulation. Their adrenal glands need a break, so get off the coffee. Interferes with detoxification. That affects a whole bunch of systems in the body, and especially hormones and hormone balance. It's a diuretic, which means you lose water, and most people don't even drink enough water as it is. So I mean, one of those things to get off as well. And the additives added to coffee, either through the filtering process, the making process, or the things you add in, like cream, sweeteners, different kinds of milks, and different French vanilla this, and mocha chocolate latte that. All these things add up and cause a lot of problems to the body. You know, you'll see these, I have a lot of patients, usually young girls, they'll go to Starbucks and order their mocha frappuccino latte, huge cup with icing, sugar, whipped cream, and chocolate swirls in it. It's basically like a sundae, and they'll have that a couple times a week. It just puts on weight like crazy and affects their hormones as well. So there's so many things people add to coffee that are not good. But my stance on coffee has always been the same. I'm not a huge fan of it. I get a lot of hate for it. I'm really sorry about that. I mean, obviously my goal is to help patients as best I can, to help them move their health in a positive direction as fast as possible. And I am picky about coffee because it's one of those things you do every single day that saps your health. So anyway, hope you like the vlog. Hope you like this topic. Maybe not the best topic for everybody, but something I feel very passionate about, because my job is to have people live long and live well and do the right things for a long time. So thanks a lot for listening, and we'll chat soon. Take care.